JLo has made many enemies in her world, with many being those who work for her. They've leaked some awful details about her and shown just how horrible she is. Now, Gilly Liar had been a longtime assistant to JLo before she quit and went to work for Mariah Carey in 2013. It's been said that the main reason why she quit was because of JLo's boyfriend at the time, Casper Smart. Apparently, Casper was allowed to do whatever he wanted in the house, and this included him mistreating the staff members. That upset Gilly, a source told Radar Online. Casper always insisted that Jennifer's staff call him Mr. Smart, and even demanded that Gilly get him drinks. So it appears that JLo let her assistant get disrespected, which is just not okay at all, and it shows what kind of person she really is. Then there's the time when she got everyone to turn on her longtime makeup artist Scott Barnes. There had been a leak on JLo's team as they exposed to the press that JLo was planning on getting married to Mark Anthony. Now, JLo claimed that Scott was one of the employees who betrayed her, so she fired him and made everyone ignore him. The thing was, they never asked him about it though, they just fired him. Now, during an interview on the Jeff Probst show, he claimed that he didn't know anything about the wedding and wasn't the leak, but JLo's team still shunned him. Scott said, "Nobody would talk to me, it was like I had the plague." Then, when the truth came out that Scott did not leak the news or even know about the wedding ahead of time, he received a phone call from Jen, who Scott claimed said the following. It was like, "Hey, it was a big misunderstanding, you know we have a lot of stuff coming up and I really miss you, so let's just get back to work." Although Scott was very gracious about the whole thing, it appears that JLo did not apologize to him, and it's just crazy to me that he went back working for her and that no one put a stop to her behavior. Now, near the end of last year, Elon Musk was speaking on the Joe Rogan Experience when he began talking about JLo's criticism of the recently elected president and his remarks about Puerto Ricans. Elon then brought up JLo's personal history with Diddy as she dated him from 1999 to 2001. He said JLo was like his ex-girlfriend, and now all of a sudden she's warning people about this person, but how many people did she warn about Diddy? Oh, 0. Maybe we shouldn't trust her opinion. He added people in the music industry had to know that Diddy was doing these things. Where's that accountability? They had to know. Now, Ojani Noah, JLo's ex-husband, claimed that she was involved in Diddy's freak-offs that came up in his federal indictment. "I'm not on the list," Ojani wrote on Instagram. To those people and media outlets asking if I ever went or participated in that piece of Diddy's freak-off parties, no and no, never. But my ex-wife, Jennifer Lopez, aka JLo, did. Ask her. But in a shocking turn of events, one of her past assistants has come to her defense. Thea D'Souza, who worked with JLo on the 2002 film Made in Manhattan, posted a statement on Threads that said, "If you knew Jennifer Lopez, if you ever worked with her like I did, or if you were close with people who are like family to her like I am, you would know she did not have any idea about Diddy. She barely drinks, she's not a partier, she isn't a good time girl, she's a workaholic who uplifts women, and who was charmed by him for a brief time in her life." Now, Thea emphasized that JLo does not deserve to be conflated with Diddy's shocking and criminal misdeeds. So Thea claims that JLo is innocent in all of this, but she's the only one who's spoken out. You see, JLo is refusing to speak about her ex Diddy. She walked out of an autograph signing at AFI Fest 2024 when someone in the crowd asked her if she had any comments about Diddy and the allegations. The US Mirror tabloid reported that the singer left immediately, despite fans' pleas that she stay. And don't expect her to say anything. In May, after video footage of Diddy hurting his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura was brought to light, JLo stayed silent. Now, many of Diddy's other exes have spoken out against him, but not JLo. Though tabloid sources claim that the Cassie footage disgusted her, JLo was silent on the subject and has stayed that way. Sources are saying that Jen is not going to address the accusations or take time to talk about them because it's not her story to tell. If an interviewer brought it up, she would cross that path as and when it happens, but she won't address it publicly and will not put herself in that conversation on purpose. Then there was the fact when JLo and Mark Anthony's twins needed nannies, JLo gave them a grueling schedule. Now, normally people who make a lot of money, like JLo for example, have numerous people who help them with everyday tasks, especially childcare, as it can be so difficult. But Jennifer expected one nanny, not not only to take care of both twins, but to work 16-hour days, 7 days a week, as an insider told the National Enquirer. Now, unsurprisingly, the first nanny she hired left after just a week of working for her. They hired her second nanny, who was wonderful with the twins, but she couldn't take working such long hours without a break, a source said. So then she quit after just a week as well. And yeah, I don't blame them for quitting. I mean, that schedule is just unreasonable. Then in 2022, a girl named Kyla posted a TikTok saying that her dad worked for a company that JLo would hire for drivers. But apparently he heard so many bad stories about the star that he never wanted to be her driver. It said that JLo does not allow her drivers to look or talk to her. She's also so strict that if the driver looks through the rearview mirror and makes eye contact with her, she will freak out. Not to mention that she has a crazy rule that her luggage cannot touch the ground. Now, it appears that this story is real though, because one of JLo's former drivers sued her. Hakab Menokian claims he started driving for JLo and Mark Anthony in 2005. He said that the three of them had such a great bond that they convinced him to shut down his company and work exclusively as JLo's personal head of security and transportation. He claimed that JLo agreed to pay him more than $200,000 per year, but things went downhill in 2011. This is when Hakab claims he was forced to spend time with JLo's manager, Benny Medina. He claims that Benny hated him and even found a way to convince JLo to demote him, taking away his security responsibilities and making him JLo's LA driver, and that was it. Now, he says that he was basically forced to resign and then sued JLo and Benny for unspecified damages. JLo then countersued him for extortion, but her suit was dismissed in December 2012. Now, the two eventually settled on undisclosed terms, but that honestly just sounds like a horrible situation. And finally, one of JLo's backup singers, Julia Wang, posted on TikTok how horrible it was to work with the star. She said she was so mean to her backup singers. If you were pretty or if you were Latina, like, game over, she hated you. Julia also said that JLo refused to talk or even look at any of the singers during their rehearsals, except for an occasional eye roll or scoff, which is just crazy. She acted like a bully. Can you imagine spending time with someone working in a closed setting every single day for months, and this person never even acknowledging you or acting like you exist? She asked. And honestly, no, I can't. That sounds like a horrible work environment. Now, she also shared that JLo changes the way she acts when there are men present, and Julia added that she only treats the women poorly because she views them as competition. It seems like if you have anything to do with JLo, it would just be horrible. Celebrities aren't always nice to the people who work for them. Don't believe me? Well, let's start off with Naomi Campbell. She is notoriously one of the most difficult celebrities to work with. She was one of 6 models of her generation declared supermodels by the fashion industry and the international press, and I think it's safe to say that this got to her head, and she thought that she could behave however she wanted. Back in 1998, Georgina Galanis filed a lawsuit claiming Naomi became physical with her while they were on a work trip in Canada. Amongst the shocking allegations Georgina brought to light, she alleged that Naomi grabbed her by the throat and even hit her with a phone. Along with that, in 2004, her maid claimed to have been slapped in the face. In 2005, her personal assistant alleged Naomi had smacked her around the head with a BlackBerry, while another associate accused her of coming over like Mike Tyson after they wore the same dress to an event. In 2006, she was arrested on suspicion of attacking her drugs counselor, while a former housekeeper sought damages and claimed that she was a violent super bigot. Now, in 2007, she was sentenced to community service after assaulting her New York maid, who had required stitches after Naomi beat her around the head with a crystal encrusted phone when she couldn't find a certain pair of jeans. Yeah, that sounds absolutely horrible, and I have no idea why anyone would want to work for her. Then an online user spoke of their experience with Bruce Willis and said this: his movie Hostage was being filmed in several locations of Azusa Canyon. I was a member of a non-profit charity organization that had a sizable gated lot off the base of the canyon, and our location was perfect for many production crews as they could leave all their equipment safely stored overnight. The lot was rented quite often for that purpose. During filming, Mr. Willis would come and go through the lot, where his trailer was also located. Occasionally, a member of the organization would approach him to greet him or ask him for a quick pic, and each and every time without fail, Mr. Willis Gillis would stare the person down and quite often say something to them that included his obviously well-rehearsed F-bombs. One instance in particular, I was arriving with one of the senior members of the organization for an early morning meeting. We, after clearing the massive security detail to get into our own lot, parked the car and proceeded to walk towards the entrance of the building. Like any normal human being in a social situation, we wished good morning to the people that we happened to be passing. Honestly, I didn't even realize who it was until he turned his head in our direction and said, "F you." Yikes. On the website Quora, Emily Watford, who worked at the arena where J-Lo once performed, detailed how her niceness is so fake disgusting. Everything in her room had to be white, she made them close and sanitize the entire child playroom for only her kid or kids, whatever she has. And that isn't too bad. If you got the money to do that, then do it, she said. But Emily added what was bad that a doorman looked at her and apparently she hates when staff look at her. So she started yelling at whoever about it in front of the doorman like he wasn't there. He said, "So much for Jenny from the block," as she got him fired. Now that's not all though, as according to HuffPost UK, the singer has reportedly banned staff from working on her new home from talking or making eye contact with her. And she allegedly gave these requirements for a new assistant. The person has to be graceful under pressure, have thick skin, and be resourceful in foreign countries. You'll be on call 24/7, you have to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. Now, according to several of J-Lo's former staff members, Jennifer earned herself the nickname Pay-Lo because she paid her staff around 50% less than they could make elsewhere. Now she just treats people like trash and wants to be treated like a queen. Harold Ramis was directing the film Groundhog Day and Bill Murray was starring in it, although Bill was not behaving properly. Now Bill was so fed up with the studio and Harold that he would dodge phone calls, be late to shoots, and basically just blew them off. The communication between himself, the studio, and the director was so poor that they suggested Bill get an assistant to deal with all of that. So he hired a personal assistant who was profoundly deaf, did not have oral speech, only spoke American Sign Language, which Bill did not speak, nor did anyone else in the production, Harold told Entertainment Weekly. But Bill said, "Don't worry, I'm going to learn sign language," and I think it was so inconvenient that in a couple weeks he gave that up. That's anti-communication, you know, let's not talk. Yeah, now that's just insane for everyone involved, and that poor assistant, they probably had no idea what was going on. Now we all know in 2022, Amber Heard had a defamation trial with her ex-husband Johnny Depp. As part of that trial, her former assistant Kate James testified, and she worked for Amber from 2012 to 2015. Now in her testimony, she made some pretty shocking allegations about what working for her was really like. Kate claimed in court that Amber would often scream at her and allegedly use illegal substances. She also accused Amber of spitting in her face during her employment, but that was hardly the first time Kate made some dark allegations about her former employer. You see, 2 years earlier, she spoke out against Amber in another trial, this time when Johnny Depp took on the British tabloid The Sun over an op-ed piece Amber had written for the outlet. Now that time, Variety reported that Kate accused Amber of sending her rude and hurtful messages early in the morning on more than one occasion. She also claimed that Amber took her personal story of being an SA survivor and used it as her own. Now Amber had a different version of this story though, as when she took the stand, she spoke out against Kate's allegations and overall character, as she told the court that her former assistant was not easy to work with. Kate's behavior was horrible, she stated. Now, per NBC News, Graham Chase Robinson accused Robert De Niro of allegedly touching her without her permission and making lewd comments while in her presence. Not only that, but Graham said she was asked to do tasks that she wasn't expecting while working for the actor, including household chores and even scratching him on the back. Now, as for what Robert had to say about the allegations, he made it pretty clear he wasn't going to co-sign on his former assistant's take of events, with his lawyers telling Us Weekly, the allegations made by Graham Chase Robinson against Robert De Niro are beyond absurd. But that wasn't the only drama in this situation, as Graham's allegations came as a part in a countersuit. Robert's Canal Productions had actually filed a lawsuit against Graham that same year, accusing her of not doing her job properly. Now the company alleged that she had a tendency to buy things using her company card, and also supposedly enjoyed watching TV while she was supposed to be working. Now Robert also speculated per TMZ that Graham had only made her allegations in in retaliation for the initial lawsuit. Now, in recent years, BuzzFeed News spoke to former employees on the Ellen DeGeneres show, all who remained anonymous. They said they were fired after taking medical leave or bereavement days to attend family funerals. One employee, who claims that she was fed up with comments about her race, essentially walked off the job, and honestly, good for her. Others said they were instructed by their direct managers to not speak to Ellen if they saw her around the office. Now, most of the former employees blamed executive producers and other senior managers for the day-to-day toxicity, but one former employee said that ultimately it's Ellen's name on the show and she really needs to take more responsibility for the workplace environment. Now, if she wants to have her own show and have her name on the show title, she needs to be more involved in what's going on, one former employee said. It's also said that Ellen only appears to be bubbly and down to earth on camera, but backstage she is demanding and rude to her staff. In fact, the same anonymous source revealed that after hours, staffers get together and talk about Queen Ellen. A few had even quit because of her behavior. And what is Ellen's behavior to her staff, you may ask? Well, apparently she explodes at staffers over the tiniest things. Yeah, Ellen doesn't sound like a fun person to work for. And finally, in 2012, Lady Gaga's assistant Jennifer O'Neill brought a lawsuit against her that claimed that the singer owed her roughly $390,000 for more than 7,000 hours of overtime. During her 13-month stint as the singer's helper, Jennifer said she was expected to be on call 24/7, wake the star up, and even make sure she had a towel waiting after a shower. She added that the two frequently slept in the same bed because Jennifer never had her own hotel room while on tour and was required to address Gaga's needs throughout the night. Now that is just wrong. The Daily Mail also revealed that during a videotaped deposition, Gaga was quoted as saying, "Jennifer is an effing hood rat who is suing me for money that she didn't earn."
Naomi Campbell. By now everyone knows the horror that comes with working with supermodel Naomi Campbell. According to People magazine, Campbell allegedly threw a phone at her assistant in 2001. The assistant also claimed that the model grabbed her by the arms and threw her down on a couch. In February of 2000, Campbell pleaded guilty to a separate charge for actually being up an assistant. Now, in September of 2016, Campbell faced more legal trouble after allegedly attacking a former public schoolboy with a phone. Again, another phone, leaving a bruise on his face. Now, the unnamed young man who works for a PR firm and was hired to actually help, rehabilitate Campbell's public image, was visiting her in a hotel in Manhattan when the scuffle broke out. Everyone has a different version of what happened, so it's impossible to really know what exactly went down. Campbell was apparently recovering from surgery at the time of the incident, casting, a pall of doubt kind of over whether she was actually, capable of attacking anyone. It's worth noting Lord Bell, founder of the PR firm working with Campbell, called Campbell the most unpleasant fashion model in the world. That's coming from a man who previously worked with the notorious tyrant Margaret Thatcher. Mariah Carey is next. Let's talk about Mariah Carey's former assistant, Liana Azarian. In 2019, Liana sued Mariah for unpaid wages and revealed some shocking secrets about the singer's behavior. In the original lawsuit, Carey accused Liana, whom she reportedly fired in 2017, of secretly recording embarrassing videos of her performing various personal activities, including, some cases, intimate content. Now, according to the pop star, her ex-employee then attempted to blackmail her with those videos, threatening to release them unless she was given $8 million. Carey also claimed that she violated a non-disclosure agreement that she signed when she began working for her back in 2015. On the same day that Carey filed her lawsuit, Liana filed a lawsuit of her own, claiming, she was the victim of battery and harassment during the, approximately 2 years that she worked for the musician before actually being wrongfully terminated. According to Liana, Mariah would often demand ridiculous things like having her assistant fetch her ice cream at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Liana also claimed that Mariah would frequently, berate her and just make her feel belittled. Carey went on to accuse her of destroying some of the evidence at the center of this lawsuit that the singer says would have bolstered, her case against her. Justice Borak sided with Carey, granting her request to penalize her former assistant and issuing sanctions after he found that Liana did in fact destroy 2 videos and WhatsApp messages that might have actually been relevant to the case. He also determined that after the lawsuit had had already been filed, Liana spilled, water over her old cell phone before giving it away, which he found was destruction of evidence. Borak wrote in his decision, trading in her cell phone without taking any measures to save the videos, messages, and any other data after this lawsuit was filed when Miss Azarian had an undeniable duty to preserve evidence, was grossly negligent, if not intentional. He ordered her to turn over, her current cell phone for forensic examination and pay Carrie's attorney fees for that specific matter. Lady Gaga is up. Lady Gaga's former assistant Jennifer O'Neill in 2013 sued Lady Gaga for unpaid overtime and revealed some surprising secrets about the singer's lifestyle. This long-suffering former assistant, whom the star branded as a hood rat during a bruising court battle, is working on a dishy book about the singer called Fame Monster. O'Neill had worked for Gaga during, the Born This Way era, during 2009 actually to 2011. Now, this was for her Monster Ball tour, and she actually sued in 2011, claiming that she was owed a whopping $393,000 for about 7,168 hours of overtime, plus damages. She struck a deal with Simon & Schuster imprint, which is for Atria Books. Now, insiders said the deal could be worth up to $1 million at the time now, which more than makes up for all the overtime O'Neill claims that she was forced to work for Gaga, including sleeping in her boss's bed and administering her daily medicine. Now, according to Jennifer, Lady Gaga would often require her assistant to be on call 24/7 and would demand very bizarre things like having her assistant massage her feet. Now, Paul Oleski, which is Atria's Books vice president and director of publicity, confirmed that they had a book deal with O'Neill, adding that no release date had been set at the time for the book Fame Monster. While O'Neill has not yet delivered her manuscript to Atria after all this time, her Manhattan federal court battle with Gaga provided a glimpse of some fascinating potential, material. Now, O'Neill testified that she was required to sleep in Gaga's bed because she didn't sleep alone and was expected to be working again 24/7 around the clock doing really odd demands. And that was for an annual salary of $75,000. O'Neill said, she had no privacy, no chance to talk to any family, friends, no chance to do anything. There was basically not an opportunity for her to live her life. Gaga fought the suit and blasted her former aide in a sworn deposition as, she called her a hood rat who was suing her for money that she just didn't earn. The star declared in court papers that, I am the queen of the universe every day, and, I am quite wonderful to everybody that works for me. Now, in October of 2013, Gaga agreed to actually settle O'Neill's suit out of court, and terms were not disclosed. Kanye West. Kanye's former assistant David Weather spilled some secrets about the rapper's behavior. In 2014, David claimed that Kanye would often have massive tantrums and would demand ridiculous things, like having his assistant find him a very specific type of cereal. None of this is surprising, and in more recent times, Kanye's West ex-assistant Lauren Piscotta had filed a lawsuit accusing him of attacking her. The lawsuit also reveals disturbing text messages between West and his now wife, Bianca Censori. Piscotta alleges an incident involving sedating occurred during a studio session in Santa Monica, causing her to feel disoriented and lose control over her body. Piscotta, while sharing details, mentioned that the rapper ordered her a drink, after which she began feeling out of touch, and she said the next morning when she woke up, she had no recollection of what had happened, but just knew that something was really wrong and felt this immense shame and embarrassment. The studio session is alleged to have happened years before Piscotta actually worked for Kanye in 2021 and 2022. Now, Kanye was allegedly upset that his ex-wife Kim Kardashian commented on the rapper and Piscotta hanging out. She claimed that Kanye told Kardashian the two hooked up and left out the actual true nature and severity of what he did to her. After Piscotta actually informed Kanye that she couldn't recall the night at the studio, he allegedly just laughed it off and said, "Oh, women love to say they don't remember." A representative for Kanye, in a statement to the Washington Post in June of last year, criticized the baseless allegations against him and wrote that Piscotta, actively pursued him to coerce employment and other material benefits, then engaged in blackmail and extortion when her advances were rejected. Next up, we have Victoria and David Beckham. Now, in 2008, David Beckham and Victoria's nanny, Abby Gibson, was terminated from her job after getting into a very heated argument argument with Victoria. In retaliation, she actually ran to News of the World to give a tell-all interview about what the Beckhams were like and spilled some secrets about the family. Behind Closed Doors was actually the name of the article that was published. Now, in this interview, she revealed that the famous Brits, perfect family facade was mostly fabricated for the press, and that David and Victoria often argued, and in front of the kids, allegedly. Now, she also explained that the famous spouses almost got divorced while Victoria was still pregnant with her third child, Cruz. However, after, her scathing interview, Abby, who broke her confidentiality agreement, was sent to court for breaking her contract. In 2009, she was forced to issue a public apology to the Beckhams for revealing their secrets and has agreed, to permanent undertakings of confidentiality. In 2005, Hugh Tomlinson, Queen's counsel for the Beckhams, told the court it is uniquely hurtful and distressing to have the person who, until the end of March of that year, was sitting around the breakfast table with them, and their children discussing their daily lives. Having her repeat that information is alarming. Charlie Sheen's former assistant, Rick Calamero, revealed some shocking secrets about the actor's behavior. According to Rick, Charlie would often have wild parties and would demand that his assistants clean up after him. Now, he said that Sheen allegedly would stay up for days on end with zero sleep, no water in his body, wouldn't eat, and would demand that everyone cater to him constantly, and even allegedly had people perform, for his entertainment, doing random things just to make him laugh. Rick, who's actually a former Hollywood nightclub owner, met the actor back in 2006, and in 2010 actually joined Camp Sheen full-time as an assistant. Now, Rick was reportedly, by Sheen's side for many of his legendary antics in Vegas, LA, and New York, and in a very shocking turn of events though, Rick was actually found passed away in his home surrounded by prescription meds and booze. Now, he allegedly was laying passed away for several days before he was even found. Sheen never commented on his passing either, which is a little weird, and a lot of people blamed Rick for Charlie, going crazy and partying too hard during those days, but many people also said they had been best friends for years and just enabled each other in their antics. Now, it was obvious that they were poor influences on each other, no doubt. Sheen has frequently stated that he does not believe rehab actually works, and the friends, he has shared many common dependency, habits on and lifestyle similarities is to what's to blame, basically.
Justin Bieber recently parted ways with his personal assistant, but some sources say that Justin had actually fired the man 5 years ago. The reason right now for the split is because the assistant was looking to focus on his acting career. He had been working for the famous couple since 2018. The downsizing seems to be a trend for Bieber lately. His team keeps getting smaller, and he recently unfollowed a bunch of past co-workers and friends, so this is actually not that out of the ordinary right now. Sources claiming to be close to the situation, of course, claim that the assistant actually left Bieber because they were worried about his erratic behavior as of late. But up next with Lady Gaga and the mess from 2013. A former assistant and friend filed a lawsuit back in 2011, but the ball wasn't rolling until a couple years later. The assistant, Jennifer O'Neill, was suing Gaga for unpaid overtime, an alleged 7,168 hours of it, which is almost $400,000. Gaga did end up sharing her side of the story in her deposition. The singer said that she doesn't pay overtime and never has, and this being the second time the assistant worked for her, she should have been familiar with that policy. Gaga also appeared to say O'Neill had it good because she was jetting around the world with her, sleeping in expensive hotels, and also literally sleeping in those beds. Plus, there was the food and the parties that she got to experience. Gaga even alleged that O'Neill asked famous designers to send her free things and used Gaga's discounts at their stores without permission. Now, the thing is, Gaga definitely said some rude things during this deposition, so it's clear that both sides had some stuff to work on. Gaga also said that O'Neill just wasn't a very good assistant, citing things like not helping the star get set up when traveling, which might seem a bit ridiculous, asking someone else to go get your toothbrush for you, but remember that Lady Gaga can't just walk down a street to the nearest corner store without risk of being mobbed by fans. Rumor is the assistant is writing a book about her experiences, but it's been over a decade now, and crickets, so who knows if that's really happening in the end or if any of this even happened at all. Now, no one else on this list is going to have quite as much trouble as Taryn Manning's ex-assistant did. So much trouble that the pair ended up in court. When you hear celebrity assistant horror stories, it's usually things that are just kind of like weird situations like the Lady Gaga stuff, but it's rare that you hear about legit violence. Taryn Manning's assistant happened to be an unlucky one. The actress was charged back in 2012 with a misdemeanor after the assistant accused of coming into violent physical contact with her, restricting her airflow and scratching. Taryn's representation apparently kept downplaying the whole thing and even referred to the assistant as a member of the family, saying that this was all just personal issues. Still, the judge ordered the actress to stay away from her ex-assistant, and the assistant later ended up forgiving the star in the end. Now, I think we all remember the iconic film The Devil Wears Prada. Turns out that fiction was based on fact. The author was an assistant to Anna Wintour before writing the book, so it's safe to assume that she pulled from her personal experiences, which is probably why it's so good. Although, like most things, it's made larger than life for entertainment purposes. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if Wintour did have assistants on hand just to help her remember people's names. She is one of the most famous people in the fashion world after all. Moving on to Kim K's ex-assistant, who shared some interesting facts about how the woman looks so good all the time. At least, the word on the street is, it was an ex-assistant that said all this. The earliest mention I can find citing this simply says a source, but other articles are adamant that it was an ex-assistant. The secret in question is apparently when Kim K gets fat removed from her body, she allegedly freezes it to use in other spots on her body. Popular ways to use it would be like fillers or in rear enhancements. The source claimed that the latter was what Kim K used it for. The star is adamant that she does not have implants, so this would be an alternative should her body type not be natural. Of course, all this info came out roughly a decade ago and hasn't moved past speculation, so it's up to you what you want to think. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has made a name for herself as a supermodel fashion diva, but also seemingly a danger to those that she employs. Many employees have come forward with various stories of the supermodel acting rudely towards them. One personal assistant even called out the model for getting physically violent with her in 2000. Vanessa Frisbee claimed that she was attacked during an argument with the star. Of course, Campbell said this never happened and sued Frisbee, specifically for breach of contract. In the end, the case was thrown out. But then, another PA came forward in 2004. This time, the claim was they were held hostage in an LA hotel where a phone was thrown at them. Again, this was denied, and again, the case was dropped. But then here we are back at it in 2005, when another assistant accused the model of hurting her with and this is a direct quote, jewel-encrusted BlackBerry. Denied again. There were technically more people that accused the model of mean things, but those are all the assistants. Lindsay Lohan is doing quite well now, but it's hard to forget that she basically pinned her 2012 car crash on her assistant Gavin Doyle. Back in the early 2010s, Lohan's Porsche rear-ended a truck. The star allegedly told police that she was in the passenger seat, and Gavin Doyle, her assistant, was the driver. Except when police spoke to Gavin, his story was flipped. Eventually, through other evidence, police concluded that Gavin was telling the truth. Gavin ended up bailing Lohan out after it all, but she apparently was still angry with him considering she kicked him out of the car. The pair seemed to patch things up later on, but it was quite a moment while it was happening. One thing about the early 2000s, they were messy, and Jessica Simpson's past assistant was no stranger to being messy. The woman decided to speak to the star and spread some rumors about Simpson, like that she doesn't pay at restaurants because she believes her star power is good enough, which is completely wild to think about, so thank goodness there isn't much evidence out there to prove it. Of course, not trying to say that this never happened, I don't know, I wasn't there. However, there is one pretty famous restaurant story that makes me less inclined to believe this little piece of gossip. Last year, Simpson left a $300 tip on a $500 check with a sweet note. So, who knows what kind of person Simpson was in a restaurant 20 years ago, but today she seems like the right kind of guest. Madonna herself revealed that she has an assistant for a very specific and very strange role, the food police. When you're off traveling the world and performing for adoring crowds, you're thinking so much about others that you sometimes forget yourself. And for Madonna, that means she sometimes just forgets to eat. And hey, happens to the best of us. Plus, she's a perfectionist, so she wants to make sure everything on the tour is perfect, especially her eating patterns. And if you can afford to pay someone to check in on you, why not? They are also making sure she drinks water too, of course. Rumor is that Sarah Jessica Parker wants her assistants as smart as possible, which, that makes sense, but apparently an Ivy League education is practically a job offer. Parker is known for having really good relationships with her assistants. She was even a bridesmaid to a past assistant of hers. Although, what makes her celebrity secret my personal favorite of the list is it's a little bit out there. Somewhere along the way, a past staff member claimed that SJP practices witchcraft. Yeah, I fear something got a little bit lost in translation here. See, there's nothing online to suggest that Sarah Jessica Parker is a full witch, other than her role in Hocus Pocus, of course. My guess is things got a little murky when Sarah Jessica Parker learned of a past ancestor. She is actually related to a woman imprisoned during the Salem witch trials, so her Hocus Pocus character actually hits closer to home than she thought. And even if she is following her however many great-grandmother's footsteps and practicing a little witchcraft, good for her.
Now, in 2008, David Beckham and Victoria Beckham's nanny, Abby Gibson, was terminated from her job after getting into a heated argument with Victoria. In retaliation, she actually ran to News of the World to give a tell-all interview about what the Beckhams were like behind closed doors, which would actually then become the actual title of the article. Now, in her interview, she revealed that the famous British perfect family facade was mostly fabricated for the press, and that David and Victoria often argued, like a lot. She also explained that the famous spouses almost got divorced while Victoria was still pregnant with their third child, Cruz. However, after her scathing interview, Abby, who broke her confidentiality agreement, was actually sent to court for breaking her contract. In 2009, she was forced to issue a public apology to the Beckhams for revealing their secrets and has agreed to permanent undertakings of confidentiality. Now, in 2005, Hugh Tomlinson, Queen's counsel for the Beckhams, told the court it is uniquely hurtful and distressing to have the person who until the end of March this year was sitting around the breakfast table with them and their children discussing their daily lives, and repeating that information. Mariah Carey apparently doesn't watch the news. Producer Damian Young, who worked with Mariah during the 90s and eventually became her close friend, described the pop star as lonely and said she lived inside like a bubble. He went on to say, she didn't watch the news, she didn't watch entertainment shows or read the magazines because she was worried about reading mean things about herself. She's sensitive, and that is nothing compared though to actually one of her former assistants who claimed that she was subjected to physical and emotional trauma at the hands of Mariah's manager. Now, Liana Shaknazaran filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court claiming that she was tormented by the singer and the singer's former manager. According to the suit, she was hired by Carey, offered a salary of over $300,000 a year. She said she had to be on call 24/7 hours a day. The assistant actually said she was subjected to this, mistreatment mainly by Mariah's former manager, but Mariah was allegedly in the room whenever it would happen and did absolutely nothing to stop it. In a turn of events though, Mariah then sued Liana, claiming she is a grifter and extortionist. Carey sued also for invasion of privacy, breach of contract, and breach of fiduciary duty. Allegedly, Liana filmed Mariah engaged in personal activities without Mariah's permission. Both parties ended up reaching a mutual agreement. Nothing further has actually come from it, so that's good. Oprah Winfrey only drinks Diet Coke. Now, this isn't like the craziest story, but it's kind of funny, so I wanted to give it an honorable mention. According to an anonymous staffer who actually worked at Harpo Productions, where they filmed the Oprah Winfrey Show, Oprah would only drink Diet Coke and she hated Pepsi. However, the vending machine at the studio only served Pepsi, which forced her staffers to serve her Pepsi that they actually called Coke. Now, one unfortunate employee didn't get that memo. He shared his story saying, "When I first started, I was asked to go get a Diet Coke. I saw that the machine was all Pepsi products, so I hauled my behind over to a Subway, bought a Diet Coke, and came back. I took it into the senior producer's office, who said, 'Where the heck have you been? We needed that yesterday.' I told her I went across the street to get a Diet Coke since that's what they asked for. She said, 'You're so stupid. When they ask for a Diet Coke, they mean, they get a Diet Pepsi.' That's when I knew my days at Harpo were limited." He got fired, all because of this very small mix-up. Ouch. Christian Bale was depressed during his early years as an actor. Harrison Chung, who worked as Christian's assistant/publicist back before the actor became really famous, said the star was really depressed and just under tremendous pressure to support his parents and his sisters through his acting career. He said, "I would always joke with him that he was the saddest guy I knew. He had the whole top floor of the house and he would stay there for days listening to music or reading. He was very moody. Harrison also explained the bizarre ways Christian's family would motivate him to continue working. He said every morning his father would prepare Christian's breakfast tray, scrambled eggs with some baked beans, like a real English tea type breakfast, walk up the stairs yelling, "Who is the greatest actor in the world?" And then he said you'd hear this small voice coming back just saying, I am. Lil Wayne is next. In late 2022, Young Money Entertainment and Signature Flight Support were all sued by Wayne's former assistant Andrew Williams after he made some bombshell allegations about the notorious rapper. In legal documents, the former assistant actually accused Wayne of multiple things, including both attacks and battery, while also alleging Wayne had caused him what he described as emotional distress. In this suit, Andrew actually claims that Wayne and the pilot had an argument before takeoff. Andrew said he tried to stop the argument from getting physical, which he claimed, upset Wayne and led to the rapper punching him in the face with a closed fist. But not so fast, at least according to Wayne, that is, because Wayne denied all allegations of wrongdoing or that Andrew was harmed by him at all. Wayne argued that his actions were done in self-defense. As of January 2023, the situation between the two is still yet to be resolved in court. Actor Amber Heard's personal life has been dissected publicly thanks to her high-profile legal dramas, with one of the most famous ones being her notorious 2022 defamation trial with ex-husband Johnny Depp. As part of that trial, her former assistant Kate James testified, and she made some pretty shocking allegations about what being in Heard's presence, when she worked for her from 2012 and 2015 was really like. James claimed in court that Heard would often scream at her and allegedly used illegal substances. Now, James wasn't quite done there, as she also accused Heard of spitting in her face during her employment. But that was hardly the first time James made some dark allegations about her former employer. 2 years earlier, James spoke out against Heard in another trial, this time when Depp took on British tabloid The Sun over an op-ed piece that Heard had written for the outlet. Variety reported that James accused Heard of purportedly sending, her aggressive messages early in the morning on more than one occasion. James also claimed Heard took her personal story of being a SA survivor and used it as her own. Heard told the court that her former assistant was not easy to work with. She said James' behavior was horrible. Another star who isn't immune to serious allegations from their former assistant, none other than Robert De Niro. Graham Chase Robinson accused the actor of allegedly touching her without her permission and making lewd comments while in her presence. Not only that, but Robinson said she was asked to do tasks she wasn't expecting while working for the Meet the Parents star, including household chores and even scratching him on the back. Yes, she alleged that De Niro made the request on numerous occasions and once told her, "I like the way you do it." She also said De Niro and his family would regularly call the bat phone, meaning her work cell phone, and that was after office hours. She said whenever it rang, whether it was 5 in the morning, 10 at night, you would pick up. As for what De Niro had to say about the allegations, he made it pretty clear he wasn't about to co-sign on his former assistant's take on the events, with his lawyer telling a news blog the allegations made by Graham against De Niro are beyond absurd. But that wasn't the only drama in this situation, as Robinson's allegations came as part of a countersuit. De Niro and Cannell Productions, had actually filed a lawsuit against Robinson that same year, accusing her of not doing her job properly. The company alleged Robinson had a tendency to buy things using the company card and supposedly enjoyed watching too much TV or Netflix while she was supposed to be working. De Niro also speculated that Robinson had only made her allegations in retaliation for the initial lawsuit. Robinson was employed by De Niro from 2008 to 2019, so pretty long, and when she quit her job, she was Cannell's vice president, of production and finance at the time. As of right now, the two parties are still in the thick of their legal battle, so stay tuned.
At number 10, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey isn't the nicest person ever. We already know this. She's had run-ins with the paparazzi, which have not gone over well. She's had some bad relationships with others. She's known for being something of a diva. The theme here is that Mariah doesn't really treat people with the respect that they deserve, and this is probably why she's been sued for this kind of thing before. There was a lawsuit from one of Mariah's former assistants that claimed claimed that the singer peed on her, ridiculed her body, and called her some pretty rude names. Her former assistant said that she was hired by the singer to be on call 24/7 and assisted both Mariah and her manager. Though she was paid a salary of $250,000 a year, this wage couldn't cover up the torment that she sustained from Mariah. But her case wasn't the only one up against the singer at the time. While this case was being disputed, Mariah had just settled one with her former manager, which cited breach of contract, harassment, and unpaid wages. It seems like though she pays her people well, she doesn't treat them as well as she should. Many other employees have had similar horror stories, which just shows that maybe working for the Queen of Christmas isn't as holly jolly as you might think.
And at number 9, Christian Bale. Christian Bale is definitely the person I would want to work for the least, because he uses intimidation and threats of physical harm towards his assistants. One of his former assistants had such a bad experience working for the star, he actually wrote a whole book exposing him. The book's called Christian Bale: The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. It was an inside look into the negative experiences the assistant witnessed while working for him. Apparently one time fans approached Bale for an autograph, but they ended up running away crying because of how mean he was. Another time Bale got fan mail sent to his home, and Bale told the assistant that the fan should be quote eliminated, adding quote a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain prevents any screaming. Let me know how it goes. Things were so bad the assistant was diagnosed with PTSD afterwards.
At number 8, Naomi Campbell. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has been in the fashion industry for over 30 years. Over this time, she's had her fair share of scandals and feuds which have painted Naomi as the industry's mean girl. She's known for having had violent outbursts, and Naomi has been accused of being violent on 11 occasions and has been convicted of harming others 4 times. Some of the reported violent incidents include the model physically harming her assistant, grabbing her by the throat and beating her with a phone, harming another assistant and allegedly holding her hostage, throwing her phone at a housekeeper, and other accounts of emotional and physical distress. Out of these incidents, the model has been sued on multiple occasions, and they all mostly just settled out of court, but she was required to take an anger management class on top of all of her payouts. There's been some things that have been covered up, but luckily these days Naomi doesn't seem to be harming others like she used to and has moved on from this dark time.
And at number 7, Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian was sued by 7 former staff members in May of this year. The employees claimed that they were not paid enough or given breaks while employed at her California home. The lawsuit claimed that the staff never received pay stubs and weren't paid on a regular basis. They also were not given any breaks for meals or rest, and they weren't paid for all the hours they worked, along with other issues regarding compensation. But Kim claimed this was not true and that she was not responsible for paying these employees. Apparently they worked for another company and were paid through this third party. Kim's spokesperson said, quote, "Kim is not party to the agreement made between the vendor and their workers. Therefore, she is not responsible for how the vendor manages their business."
At number 6, Marilyn Manson. This year, a lot of dark information came out about singer Marilyn Manson. Multiple women came forward recounting their awful experiences with Manson, saying that the singer had harmed them severely. Some celebrities were part of the group of people who spoke out against the singer, but on top of that, one of Marilyn's assistants has also spoken out against the singer and even filed a lawsuit against him for having endured so much while working for him. The singer's assistant claimed that he had tried to kiss her, touch her inappropriately, and even made her work 48 hours straight. It was also claimed that Manson lured his assistant into working for him with promises of quote, artistic collaborations and creative opportunities. End quote. The assistant said that she lived in constant fear of one of his violent outbursts, and she said that she felt used, comparing herself to a piece of meat. To think that any of this happened to the people affected by Manson's actions is absolutely heartbreaking, and justice needs to be served.
Halfway at number 5, Sharon Stone. Stone was sued by her former nanny after that nanny accused her of violating labor laws. The nanny also claimed that Stone made derogatory comments about her ethnicity. The nanny is of Filipino heritage and claims she was quote repeatedly subjected to numerous derogatory comments and slurs by Stone related to her Filipino ethnicity and heritage, mainly during her last 6 months of employment. These comments were allegedly relating to the nanny's accent. Apparently the nanny was told not to speak so Stone's kids would not develop an accent like hers. Stone denied the claims and said it was quote an absurd lawsuit with made up and fabricated claims filed by a disgruntled ex-employee who's obviously looking to get money any way she can. But only 1 year after this suit, Stone was sued by another employee, her then maid Angelica Castillo, for quote wrongful termination.
At number 4, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is one of the most famous singers out there, so you know that she makes a lot of money, but even with all of her riches, apparently apparently she wanted to keep a lot of it for herself and not pay her staff. Back in 2011, Gaga was sued by a former assistant who claimed that the singer had cheated her out of her overtime wages when she worked alongside the singer for 13 months from 2009 to February 2010. According to the assistant, they were supposed to earn a flat rate of $50,000 annually in the first year, and in the second year of working for the singer, that rate was bumped up to 75 grand. It's still a good paycheck, but the assistant claimed that she never got her bonus overtime pay despite the fact that she had to work and be on call 24/7. Though the case was supposed to go to trial in 2013, they ended up coming to a settlement agreement before they ever entered the courtroom.
And at number 3, Celine Dion. In 2012, Celine and her late husband were sued by their former handyman, Keith Sturdivant, for unpaid wages. This handyman worked at their Florida compound and performed duties like cleaning shutters, repairing appliances, and running errands. The lawsuit goes on to allege that Dion improperly and illegally designed Sturdivant as an exempt employee, which allowed them to avoid paying him overtime, which he is rightfully owed. Because of this, he is suing for unpaid back wages that he was entitled to during employment. At the time, he said others were also not paid what they were owed, so it wasn't clear if other people might be joining him in the suit. The suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.
At number 2, Courtney Love. In 2012, Courtney Love got into some serious drama with one of her former assistants, and it got pretty ugly. Courtney's former assistant filed a lawsuit against the singer seeking wages, expenses, and punitive damages for, quote, wrongful firing, wage and overtime violations, false promise, breach of contract, negligent and intentional misrepresentation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The assistant had nothing but negative reviews for having worked for Courtney, and she was prepared to tell the whole world about it as she was planning to publish an expose about her time with Courtney. In a copy of the book Proposal, this expose promised all kinds of inside knowledge about the celebrity, including details about how she is a, quote, alleged hoarder, media manipulator, and drug user, unquote. Nothing ever came of this book, I don't think, and I'm not quite sure what happened with the rest of the case, but I for one would have loved to know what this assistant had to say because I have a feeling it would have been very juicy.
And finally at number 1, Charlie Sheen. Back in 2015, Charlie Sheen was sued for $1 million by a former staff member named Keith Fitzgerald. When Fitzgerald was originally hired in 2013, he was offered a 3-year contract with a salary of $300,000, medical benefits, and 20% incentive bonus as well. He was supposed to work for 3 years but was fired after only 5 months. Because of this inconsistency, the staff member sued for premature termination. Allegedly, Sheen didn't pay for any of his work either. The lawsuit said in part, quote, Fitzgerald's employment relationship was prematurely terminated after approximately 5 months without any explanation. Fitzgerald received no compensation whatsoever for any of the services he performed for Charlie Sheen at any time whatsoever. Sheen denied the claims and called the whole thing bogus, but the suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.